You want to be able to evaluate, what is this certification going to do for me?
The value of a cert comes in you actually understanding the material so you can then go apply it. Certifications are
They're a racket. They're a racket, and you should give them away for free. Because a piece of paper doesn't matter. Never mind the fact that licenses, which confer the ability and certify the competency of an individual in a knowledge domain, exist to screen enthusiasts and people that don't know what the fuck they're talking about from the people that should ideally conceptually understand the subject matter. So anyone that says a certification is dumb in terms of principally is dumb, including our favorite person.
And I mean, I'll add a level of context that I think I'm understanding through said messaging, and the general idea behind it, which this isn't me agreeing right now. Let me throw that out first, but the general idea is, oh, everybody charges all this money for certifications. I'm going to make it free and I'll just put it out to the world because after all, we're trying to create impact. We're going to do all this stuff. And a certification by itself means absolutely nothing unless you know how to apply it, right? Like that's the whole messaging. And again, I could be 99% off base, but I feel like,
Sure.
yeah,
Our
I
interpretation.
feel like I'm better than 50% on the dot on this one, right? I understand enough. But you know, it's the whole education without application is useless. Sure, if you know something and don't take action, it doesn't really matter how much you know. I agree with that statement. But let's flip it on its head. Application without education, also dumb. Like, it just doesn't work. Like, they are those like these are some of the pairs of things in life that just go with each other. They are both needed to create the outcomes that you desire or you desired by going and taking whatever your first step was anyways. So they're just both important. And I don't think that this is like an opinion thing. Like, I feel like if you're listening, understanding the concept, the education around the material, the book smart video checkboxy stuff, and I'll be the first one to say, I've also said, I don't think that everybody has to go to school and college and things like that is worthless, right? I've said that. Same token, I think that there are institutional education mechanisms that are still useful and you can find elsewhere when you don't have to necessarily go to college for. But like, I think we can all agree you have to understand the concepts and you have to apply them, and then that's how you create success. Like, I don't feel like there's many people are going to turn around and say, no, just take action on shit you don't know, it'll be great. Or vice versa. No, you don't have to take any action, but you can be the smartest person in the world. You'll be great. Like, both of those scenarios don't exist. If you disagree, I'd love to just chat about it and learn your point, because I don't know, I just don't see it that way.
Yeah, you're just wrong if you don't see. I'm kidding. Right, and I think that you really there's the idea that you should let execution inform your next education, and you know, if you don't know, and this is where when we think about the way that, so let's just be clear. We agree with some of the underlying conceptual elements of the assertion that without context, without the ability to apply the information that you've learned in a specific situation for benefit either for yourself or your consumer, it's probably not the most worthwhile investment of your time unless you just genuinely love learning. And there are people that do exist in that world, and they actually make phenomenal researchers. There is a profession for them. You literally just go in, you put people in a lab, and you fuck around and find out. Right? For the people that like more apply, and that's called basic research, by the way. For the listeners that don't know, like, people literally will just go do some scientific esoteric stuff that literally you will almost never apply. And then you have applied researchers that'll go in and look at that random theory that some obscure scientist in his mom's basement came up with and figure out how to make that applicable with real people. And so you need both. And anytime anyone's super one way or the other, chances are they never really had a lot of experience in the opposite end. And, and at the end of the day, like, you don't know what to learn if you don't get your hands messy and get in there and start looking at where your limitations are. Nor will you ever be able to get your hands dirty if you always think, and we see this a lot with new coaches, the imposter phenomena is that I have to be better. I have to learn more. I have to learn how to solve every problem before I even take the first client on and take some money from someone. But then, you find out that you have this beautiful, elaborate system and you have this wonderful life. And then it's like life plans when you're a teenager, right? You have your entire life planned out and then you get punched in the face and then life takes a sharp left turn and then a sharp right turn and then, two more right turns and eventually you're turning left. If you followed that, congratulations, because I
We're still
didn't.
going straight
But,
after all that.
my point is, yeah, hang on. So you left, right, which is back to straight, and then two more lefts, and then two more rights, right, right. So you're going
No, and then a left
backwards,
at the end of it.
right,
Yeah.
and then a left at the end of
Yeah.
it. So you're going to the right. My point being is that you need to know what to pay attention to, and everything else. If you're worried about getting a doctorate when you don't even have a bachelor's or a high school education, which is kind of funny when you think about people that want to go to medical school and they're in high school and they're like structuring their entire life around it. And then how many people do you know that all of a sudden they don't make it that far and they change their major or they drop out of, a law school program or whatever it is. So point being is that they didn't stop living life and they didn't stop taking action in the other areas professionally. They just kind of changed course. And that's where execution and application of taking that information and making it useful for yourself or someone else is really the baseline of that. And there are certain things that you want to look for when you're looking for certifications. And generally speaking, most consumers will fall prey to a lot of the marketing strategies and tactics for different educational bodies that may or may not actually be what they need. So we'll dive into that a little bit today's episode of the Beyond the Pump podcast, where we talk about the business of fishing and hunting. So I just wanted to try it. It didn't feel good. Where we talk about the business of fitness and nutrition. But anyways, yeah, Steve. So what are your thoughts on certification and monetizing
Well,
education?
and I think I'd like to throw this out there, like out of the gates, unless it's like very newly discovered. So information that is super new, and I think every industry probably has a different timeline of what super new is. But let's say like months, okay, just for a baseline. And Andrew, you probably could give me a really good, here's a good way to think about that. But education, paid for education, you're generally speaking paying for the delivery mechanisms at hand. You're paying for structure and you're paying for outcomes. That's why you pay for some type of coursework. Now, here's the biggest thing. So many of us have gone out and bought these online education e-bundles and everything like that, me included. And you've either never started or almost never finished. How many of them? And you start to go down this road of, oh, well, I didn't finish the last one. I'm not going to do this one, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to pay for it. And you know what? Frankly, you're 100% right. You suck. You bought something and you never actually took action. But, giant asterisks here, the reason you didn't take action was because that online info education thing was almost intentionally designed for you to never actually consume it. And they built it around the general idea that it was going to be super marketable. It doesn't mean that the information in there is bad. It doesn't mean that the information in there can't help you solve the problem. It doesn't mean anything negative about what's contained in there. It also doesn't guarantee that it is good either. Like it might be complete crap, but you have no idea what's going on in there because you never actually went and you did the thing. You never started, you never kept going, and you never finished. Now, here's the reality. You paid money to access education. Chances are, especially with AI, you can go to Google or any of the AI platforms out there and learn the exact same thing you paid somebody for. What'd you pay for? Well, you paid for somebody else to basically put all of the stuff into a box and hand it to you so it could be, in theory, easier for you to consume. Therefore, again, asterisks, almost guaranteeing you acquire the concept that you wanted. Again, guaranteeing would be under the assumption that the general idea is it's good. Who knows? You're going to learn something through there, bad or good, who knows? So, what do I mean by all that? You can go to the store and you can buy a book and you can read the book. After you buy the book, you can then also go onto an app and buy an audiobook. Both of those cost a different amount of money. Why would you pay for it twice? Because the information is delivered to you in a different fashion, one of which you might be more likely to actually get through. I will get through an audiobook, I don't know, some number of times faster and more often than a book that you have to read, just because. I think I've read cover to cover like 3 books in my life, where audiobooks I've gotten a solid 30. So on that math,
5x
10
to be
times.
specific,
But
5x speed, 10x
all
speed.
all
Oh,
all of
shit.
that to say, information is valuable based upon the consumption and the time saved that you don't have to go in and actually kind of figure it out. Like, we can all agree, algebra in high school, you can learn that by going online and doing the work for a high schooler. But how many high school kids do you know are going to log into Google every single day, know what question to ask, learn the concept, train themselves on it, test them and grade themselves to see where they've still failed, and dive into those components further and repeat that process every single day for an entire school year? Not many. So it's not necessarily about, call it the info, it's about the delivery and the mechanisms of the info that matter. That's my quick diatribe
Mhm.
of like why certifications and where the value comes from. And I, Andrew, I'd also be curious, just I'm way less school than you are. You are very much more the idea of understanding that stuff. So like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so I agree with everything that you said. And to put an academic spin on it for everyone that's wondering, like, well, because you'll find that there's two camps. There's people that will argue until the cows come home that traditional education is important. I would say that the most important thing while you're younger is the ability to learn. And I think that with today's access to information, the most important thing you can do is actually be a pass through for information, because you don't need to memorize anything or much of anything anymore. The problem becomes is if you're a pass through, you have no foundational bucket to like fish from, meaning you don't have a solid enough understanding of a lot of the basic principles for you to then make a lot of decisions on how to change something. And that is really the value of a professional, is they know the different use cases for everything. So there's something called Bloom's taxonomy, which is a layer of how to value education. Like when you think about the easiest thing to do, it's memorization. What's the capital of France? Munich. Yeah, no, it's not. It's not Paris, right? Actually, is it
Bro,
Paris?
don't ask.
I
You
might
want
be
to know
fucking
one thing
dumb
I
as shit
didn't
right
do
now.
well in
Everyone's
school?
like, oh, he's an
I didn't
American.
memorize things well because I was always like, wait, why does this matter to me?
Mhm. Yep. And so when you think about like how education structured in the American school system, the basic stuff is like learn the alphabet. You learn one letter at a time, right? And then eventually start putting those into words and finding syllables and phrases, and like you kind of build sentences and change it. So there's a scaffolding effect here of like, if you don't understand the basic things, you're going to have a weird hodgepodge of effects. But the bottom line is, remember, recollection, memory, right? Then the next thing is to be able to understand, and then you have to be able to apply that stuff. So application is actually 3 levels up. And so when you think about it, people are like, oh, certifications, which, by the way, the nature of a certification is to say, hey, this individual has proven that they are competent in these specific knowledge domains. So, for instance, in a nutritional certification, you should be baseline competent by the time you finish that in basic nutritional science, and in the coaching aspect of applying that nutritional science would be like the next level up. So once you can do those 3 things, those are what we would usually look at most people's learning curve looks like. And that's where, going through high school, you're expected to learn how to do those 3 things: memorize, understand, and apply. But then you start getting into college, which is where they start to teach a little bit more of a robust ability to like analyze information. So you're no longer just taking it for its word and using it in the way that someone shows you. If you're a person that's building houses, Someone shows you how to use a hammer and that's all you use it for. You never use it as a pry bar. You never use it for like weird shit that maybe use it as a screwdriver because you don't have one. There's a lot of different use cases for that. But you start getting into the analysis, and that's where a lot of people cap out, is that they start to think critically. And so when we talk about being able to think critically, you need to be able to take some time, sit back for a second, and reconcile information of what is everyone saying? Is it true? And does it apply in this context? And then that's what coaches realistically should be doing whenever they're weighing out this certification. This person's telling me I'm going to make $10,000 a month by doing this business coaching program, right? So let me think about that for a second. How does that compare to the industry average? It like 120K per year is like almost, well, 54K is the average online coaching salary for a health coach. So it's over double. Right? So 100K is like, oh yeah, that's a no-brainer. And that would be a symptom of analysis. But then you go up into level 5, which is evaluation. And then level 6, which is the top and the pinnacle of the little pyramid here, is actually the ability to create something new. But it's interesting because now what we're finding in our online coaching space is that a lot of people understand how to apply stuff. So they memorize stuff, they understand some of the basic principles, and they can apply it. The problem is, yeah, that's it. That's all you need, right? That's worth $7,500 a month, and it's maybe a free YouTube certification. Or, right, but the person that wrote the course didn't evaluate it, didn't look at how does this stack up? Are we doing the things that we're promising? Are we delivering on our promises? Do we even care what the outcomes are? Which, by the way, when I was running an online education company, we discovered that only 9% of people complete an unsupervised, unsupported online education track. So congratulations, this person's going to put up a certification for free and no one's going to use it anyway. So it's not like it's
one
really
out of
change
11
anything.
actually passed.
One out of 11 people will finish it. And those people are the same people that are New Year's resolutioners that will tackle their goals, because we know that it's roughly the same percentage of people that finish their New Year's resolutions. So there's something about being supported in that, which is the other, like when you think about three-dimensionally, the education is important, the information is important, right? It creates a foundation for application. Your ability to apply that information is then the next most important thing, but your ability to evaluate and analyze are the things that most people that are writing courses will miss, right? But then they start creating something without taking the time to understand when this is appropriate, when it's not, who is this for? And if you want to take your ability to identify your ideal client avatar or your ideal client profile, or basically your target demographic, whatever you want to call it, you're going to need to go through those things. But if you can't justify a position or a decision, again, like I wouldn't purchase that thing. So all that to say is, like, for people that are new to the health and fitness nutrition coaching industry, coaching psychology, whatever it is, you want to be able to evaluate, what is this certification going to do for me? And has this worked for more people than not in the last whatever number of people that have purchased it? If you ask an organization that and they can't answer you with concrete numbers, which, by the way, this is one of my biggest beefs with the online certification industry in general, education at all, is that they're not transparent. They're not forthcoming with, hey, our certification, like 1,000 people bought our certification, 500 people finished it. And of those 500 people, this is the average salary expectation leaving that. Like, those would be the things that I would respect an organization for. NASM doesn't do it. ISSA doesn't do it. NCI doesn't do it. There's a lot of these organizations. PN doesn't do it. And so you're left as a consumer wondering, I'm going to give this company anywhere from $500 to $10,000. What's the ROI? And then they just marketing hype over the details that actually matter. And that's why some of these companies have historically hemorrhaged and struggled. And that's why online education in general today is struggling, because people aren't taking the time to understand the consumer's pain points outside the initial, hey, let's just create this thing. It's an organization of information that we think matters. And they don't test it and they don't change things based upon that. And so that's what we do here at Empowered You and Beyond the Pump, is we actually take the time to evaluate those things. We're very transparent with our learning outcomes, and we have a huge data set of over 25,000 coaches that we've literally built the way we deliver things for. So anyways, soapbox. Hope that answers your question, Steve.
It does. It's but again, and just to put a bow on our soapboxes here real quick, the value of a cert comes in you actually understanding the material so you can then go apply it.
Yes.
And if you
Mhm.
are more confident
Mhm.
in understanding the material, which means not only did you read it, but you read it to comprehend, or not only did you watch the videos, but you watched the videos to comprehend. You actually had some skill checks, tests, quizzes, whatever you want to call it, to make sure, like, oh, do I need to re-go back and look at something? And it's not a, oh my God, I hate this thing. The reality is those things are built to make sure you're getting what you paid. Like some people, I hate this, or
Mhm.
I'm just going to skim through it and I'll figure it out. Like, you're cheating yourself. Just throwing that out there. You're cheating yourself.
Yeah, you're gonna
So,
struggle.
and
You're gonna
like, you want
struggle.
to talk about a great way to walk into building actual imposter syndrome? Do exactly that. If you want to ensure that you're not sure about what the hell to do and how to deliver results, do
Yep.
that exact thing. But like, even final exams and just going through the final quiz or whatever it is, those things are there, or they should be there, to make sure that you understand the concepts that you were supposed to be taught. Instead of, are you good
Mhm.
enough to pass? We should look at it is, was this program good enough to teach me what it promised it was going to teach me? Everybody learns differently. It's hard. Visual, right? People see things. You might want to read the words. Some people are super kinesthetic. Like for me to just watch a video or read something and learn, very hard. But I'm like very few in the world that is like, I need to touch and do in order to understand, right? So imagine me buying courses online and how successful I am at it. Well, it takes me a lot of effort to be able to do it. So just think about those waypoints, those measurements of success as really, did this course deliver?
Mhm.
Did this cert deliver on what it promised? Now,
Yeah.
on the other side of things, if they don't have that stuff, cool. There's some information there, but like, if there was
Mhm.
no checkbox or anything on the end of it, and it's just like, yeah, whatever, here it is. I never updated, or it's been years since I have updated it. I mean, you got to
Mhm.
kind of wonder, did did it uphold the promise that was made to you? Did you learn something out of it? Probably. All of us can go and quickly get a, here's how many grams of protein per kilogram that I need to deliver to somebody on average, or one of these things. But guess how many clients are on average? You know why there's an average? So it can take the big buckets of different clients you have and make the fucking formula, which oddly nobody fits into, because it's the average of everybody. It's not all these fucking people that sit there. Not my domain. Andrew's going to yell at me. Though there's actually 48% of people that actually sit right on the average, Steve, and that's the perfect, blah blah blah. But anyways, you get the point. You're
65.
paying for this company, this thing, to ensure you actually developed some of those base level skills so you can then go learn how to apply it. Because guess what? If you can't apply it, it doesn't matter. But if you don't know it,
Mhm.
guess what? You're also not going to be able to do? Fucking apply it. So I re soapbox.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be like
Yeah.
a minute, and it turned into 7 minute soapbox again. Sorry, guys. I'm passionate about this.
I mean, and it's just the nature of, like, if you don't wanna get got, you gotta go in informed, right? That means you need to understand, like, have some kind of general chart, the same way that if you think about, like, high school or college guidance counselors, they say, "Hey, you wanna have a degree in exercise science. You probably need to take these courses to be competent as an exercise professional," right? Like some kind of exercise testing and prescription, some kind of cardiovascular thing, some kind of biomechanics, exercise phys, like those are all pieces of the larger thing, which is, what your certification journey should look like, is that you are picking the things that will help you be the professional that you want to be. Now, I will say this, of, sometimes you don't know what you're buying until you're after you're in there. I used to teach the NASM curriculum when I was a training manager at Lifetime, and after I taught it the first time, I'm sitting there like, what the fuck is this? And they used to have a program called Lifetime Academy. So we'd teach the CPT, we would teach these corrective exercise, and we'd teach the performance enhancement stuff. Right? None of that shit was relevant, or particularly in the CPT specifically, helpful. Right? They give you this OPT model, and like you're trying to, you got Barbara over there is fucking standing on a Bosu ball on one leg trying to do some bicep curls, saying that's going to lead to her having world-class fitness and some body composition changes. Well, not in my book, buddy, right? Because you
I
just not
remember
it's not
after
going to
doing
work
my
out the way that you
CES,
think about it.
every one of my clients now needed to go
Christ.
through those protocols
Yeah.
because it was going to solve the world's problem.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs
Yep.
this.
100%. Yeah. Everyone's got a movement dysfunction and upper cross syndrome, lower cross syndrome. You're like, dude, fucking calm down, buddy. There's something to be said around movement quality, but like we find that asymmetry, which is what I did my thesis on in grad school, was we actually found that your asymmetry was not predictive of your performance. So like now imagine taking a high performing athlete, and we'd looked at Division II college basketball players, but like there were pretty substantive asymmetries, and their performance, it was not predictive of specifically counter movement jump or force production or legs. And so now you're starting to think like, okay, well, why am I going to spend all this time working on something that's not going to directly contribute to performance? Now, I will say there's other things to consider in that, but by and large, you want to make sure that you're getting the thing that's going to help you inform yourself inside of a larger comprehensive picture. If you want to work in clinical populations, so let that be the framing for how you pick your certifications. If you want to work in the clinical setting, I'd probably go with the American College of Sports Medicine track, right? They have a great exercise physiologist thing. They tend to be a little more clinically inclined, which means that their recommendations are probably going to change and differ a little bit from like the NSCA or the National Strength and Conditioning Association. We'll take part of those guys. Like you guys just give us a kickback if you're listening from those organizations. But like those are two ones that I stand by because they do contribute directly to academic research. They actually have research journals, and when you consider them versus like a Joe Schmo, I'm not saying NASM's terrible, guys. I'm saying it's just not my cup of tea. Nor does it really help the populations I've worked with, which are generally speaking going to be like people with more of a performance orientation. NSCA, if you want to be a college strength coach, if you want to be a strength coach in the pro level, if you want to work with high school athletes, if you want to work with athletes, go get something from NSCA. Don't go to NASM, because if I promise, if you have an athlete stand on a fucking bow ball on one leg with bicep curls, we gonna make fun of you on socials. Like I will come after you. I won't do any of that. But I will look at it. I won't say anything. I'll just double tap it. But if you see Andrew Garrison liked your thing, and you have somebody standing on one leg on a Bosu ball doing some bicep curls, you know. But all that to say, like, if you want to go be a personal trainer, NASM is recognized, ISSA is recognized. Are they the things that are going to give you the best results for your clients? Depends on how you use it. But remember, you're just memorizing basic facts at the CPT level. Sets, reps, acute variables, like long-term variables. That's really all you're doing. And you're learning different exercises, different ways, different movement planes. Like, once you do that, then maybe you start getting into biomechanics. But people are like, well, how many degrees of flexion should the hip external rotation have? You're like, don't even worry about that. You need to get through your first 10 clients first and like help them lose some belly fat. And then you start adding the other things on top. But consider the organization, consider what industries what subsectors they're more well received in, and then use that. If you want to go and work in a hospital setting, I would probably go get like a PN2 versus a NASM CNC, certified nutrition coach, right? If you go to a hospital setting, don't get an NCI one. Generally speaking, like that's not going to be something that's as prominent, which means it's going to be less well received by bigger organizations that care more about the credibility, because a lot of people have bought it. So NASM, ISSA, not the most credible from an outcome perspective or a learning curriculum perspective as of when I looked like 7 years ago. But they are so cheap and widely accessible that now people know their name, and that's kind of why they're well received inside of these large organizations like Lifetime and whatever else.
Yeah,
So
it comes
how to
down
pick.
to spending your time and likely your money on the thing that is going to help you achieve what you care about achieving, which is hard because
Yep.
everybody's out there positioning their stuff as the
Yeah.
ever bearing the best way possible to go solve all of the components of, the world's issues and missions. Like you need to make sure you understand people who go through this, what result do they tend to achieve outside of this? And is that going to help you with
Mhm.
your thing? And if it is, then you should go do that thing all day long.
Yeah.
And because something is
Mhm.
$5, $50, 500 or 5,000, generally speaking, doesn't necessarily mean that the information is going to be, call it, better or worse. There are going to absolutely be differences, but just because something's more
Yeah.
expensive doesn't mean it's better than the thing that's less expensive. Like I said earlier, most certifications contain information that you can get and teach yourself for free if you're willing to put the time and effort in on the internet, especially with AI today.
Mhm.
The thing that you're paying
Mhm.
for is the guarantees, the general ideas that you're going to truly understand the principles, understand the tactics that you can use on the other side of this, and you're going to be tested against it. If something is free, it might be good. It might be. If something is $50,000, it also might be good. But I'm not going to tell you one is better than the other. You need to figure out, is that thing going to actually help you get you to where you want to go, right? So
I'll tell you.
so just
I'll tell
just
you.
think about that stuff. And it's, you just have to pay
Yeah.
attention. Like, when you think of the actual intrinsic value of a certification, it is that piece of paper, but that piece of paper states, like you said, Andrew, that it means you understand the concepts. There is absolutely a gap in what has to happen, and you have to put it into practice. And somebody who's going to turn around and say, "Hey, my course is the best thing that's ever happened to application, and you're going to do great," they may or may not be lying or telling the truth. I don't know. I'm not sure who you're talking to. But here's what I can guarantee is going to happen. If you go out and find 5 to 10 people to work with after the first set of certifications or certification that you get, you will start to understand where you need to go put more time, effort, and energy.
Mhm.
Here's what happens on the internet.
Mhm.
Super easy to turn around and say, you did this, you have that, you have this knowledge. You don't know how to get a client, but let me teach you, give me 10 grand. And in your mind, perceived value of getting new business really, really high. So let me go learn that. Guess what? That information is also available on Google or in AI. That's the crazy thing. Now, the hard part
Mhm.
is, and here's where most people, like for example, my wife has a very hard time leveraging AI because she's just not a great question asker. She wasn't given that gift. For me, I am probably too inquisitive. Like I could have asked one question, but I'm going to ask 41 because why not? And let me figure that out.
Mhm.
But if you go down that road and you start to ask the questions, you will start to find the answers that you need. Now, spending money
Mhm.
on a coach, spending money on a program, spending on a cert, generally speaking, create an outcome faster, right? More precise and precision around it. Those are things that you should be spending money on. But to Andrew's point, if they don't have a record of the people who have actually achieved those things, I mean, if you're a person that looks at reviews and like, hey, this one has 2 stars or this one has 4.5 stars, and this one has 4.5 stars with 500 reviews versus this 2 star one has like 10 reviews, like, which one are you going with?
Mhm.
Which one created the outcomes that they
Yeah.
promised they were going to create? Those are the questions you have to ask yourself.
Yeah, and I would say take that a step further of go find like 5 to 10 people that are already in that course or have had that experience, and I would ask them, and I would go directly to the consumer. They'll try to put you in front of somebody that will advocate for them. Don't talk to the people that they say, "Hey, go talk to this person." That person's probably one of those outliers. So, if you're going to go to a Facebook group, if you're going to go on their socials, go to their follower list, go look at something else, and like again, randomly just reach out to people. And I say like, "Hey, I'm considering this course. You seem like you've done it before. Can you give me your experience? What did you like? What did you not like? Has it been something that you found worthwhile?" Those are really great questions to ask those people. But after you've done the certification, you finished it, which by the way, like the average time to completion for the 9% of people that did finish it was about 9 months, right? So just keep that in mind as well. Um, but don't buy another certification until you've made your money back using that service. If you spent $2,500 on a nutrition education program, coach $2,500 worth of nutrition coaching before you try to add more information. Otherwise, it's just going to be a paperweight. You're not going to get good at that skill. And it's going to be a great way for you to actually prioritize the education and then the experience on the back end of that. Versus people are like, buy this one and then go buy this lab testing one. And as someone that's bought over 72 different certifications in my life at this point, I would say that it makes more sense for people to buy it, apply it, buy it, apply it, buy it, apply it. And once you make your money back, that's how you start to become more valuable. Of you buy a $1,000, certification for fitness, make your $1,000. That's, $20, $50 sessions. You're probably going to be better off. And now you're going to have a good foundation, and then go buy a nutrition one. That might be $1,000, and then go do $1,000 worth of nutrition coaching, which might be like, 5 clients or whatever. And then use that to kind of scaffold and build. And that's how you really become a confident coach. If you just buy the cert and don't do anything with it, and buy another cert and then buy another cert and then buy another cert, like, what are we doing here? You're just feeding your ego at that point.
Andrew, I have a question. Very important question.
Steve, you're
when
muted.
You say you have bought over 72 certifications, did you stop counting at 72, and why that number? Or is it actually 72 and you just like, it's just really weird. Like, why didn't you say I've bought over more. 70?
Because I update my my resume once career changes usually. And so last time I updated it, it was at 72, and then I had more to add, and I was like, I'm just going to stop adding them.
Okay. All right. Fair. That makes sense. I was just like, why? Andrew's got some weird affinity with 72. I mean, there is a rule of 72, so it's actually a really good number, which is why it also stood out to me. But anyways.
Oh, interesting. No, I just like, it was 2 columns of 36, and you can fit about 36 lines on a Word doc.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, you got to start cutting some out. And so, and it's just, to be fair, it's not on like a general, it's not on a specific resume. It's just like on a CV/general thing. That's, it's already like 7 pages long. So I can't keep adding to it. So now I'm at the part of my career where I have to start taking stuff off of it. And frankly, like, I get more value from reading research literature than I do from a certification experience, which the thing that we also neglected to mention is that when you get a certification, you're paying for someone's perspective more than anything. The information itself is like sets and reps, but okay, well, then this is why tempo matters during this thing and in this use case. And like, so that's why you say you're paying for people's perspective. So if you're going to work in a clinical setting, go get a clinical perspective. If you're going to work in a strength and conditioning setting, go get a strength and conditioning perspective. If you're going to work as a PT, go get a PT perspective. Just, make sure that you're understanding that you're going to be buying education that's intended for a track or a specific population. So your target demographic should help you figure out what track you want to go down. If you work with a lot of elderly geriatric, like, do you need a performance enhancement specialist certification? No, you should probably go get a silver sneakers thing. You should probably go get some, anti-aging stuff or whatever, and Zumba, right? Like some mobility stuff. And so that's just very different than getting a bodybuilder ready. And that's why your education should also differ. But, just keep that in the back of your head when you're trying to figure out what you're going to spend your money on.
And I think the last thing I'll throw out here is, again, there is plenty of valuable free education, and there's plenty of valuable paid for education just across the board.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I would caution people against is it economically makes sense that the things that you pay for offer more from a fulfillment, create the outcomes, and put some parenthesis guarantee around the idea that you come out the other side with the knowledge that you've invested your time in acquiring and learning. If you do it 100%.
If you do it, caveat.
If there's free things and you actually get it done and you go through and you take diligent notes and whatever, you can also achieve great knowledge, like learning, retention, all of those things. But there's usually more resources available to help with that stuff. So if you are not part of the average population where 9% of people will actually get the thing done over the course of 9 months. So in other words, If you're going to go invest any level of time and commit to this thing and give somebody your contact information, do you want a 9% chance of getting to the end? And is that 9% chance of getting to the end in 9 months the worthwhile thing to you? Or would you rather spend 100 or $500 and maybe move that 9% to like 80 or 90%? And that's not a random number. Those are literal ranges that actually have been proven by things that we've done before, and move it from a 9 month thing to more like a 3 to 4 month thing. Right? So do you want to spend 100 to $500 more to 10x your odds of finishing and cut the time it takes to finish in at least half? That's the question. And if you don't, go do the free thing. And we'll see you on the other side of the free thing so we can help you. Joking, but not joking.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, just read a book. Honestly, Alan Aragon's like flexible dieting book, it's a phenomenal resource for people to start to gain some understanding. It won't necessarily help you apply that, although it's pretty good. Like it's one of the better resources, I would say free resources. And it's not free, obviously. It's like, but you consider like 20, $30 to support that. And like it'll get you pretty good versus like the book Power Eating or like a textbook somewhere. Like there's just, it's hard to find a colloquial book written by a professional that has research background but is digestible like that. I would say that, so that's a good one. Flexible dieting, a fitness book. I think that Ultimate MMA Conditioning by Joel, I can't remember his last name. That's a really good book on energy system training. I think that that's really helpful as a primer. Like honestly, I don't. Mark Ripeto's Practical Programming is a great one for strength training. Like those are good resources for you to build a foundational understanding on, versus like here's the carnivore diet and it works, and autophagy and like all the other shit that I would consider not foundational nutritional science. And when you start adding advanced concepts before you learn the basics, you're going to get fucked up, right? Because you're not going to have a good way to evaluate it, the advanced information, the new information against what we know traditionally works. You go to any nutrition certification, they're going to talk about protein, carbs, and fats. They're going to talk about micronutrients. They're going to talk about macronutrients.
As we think through this and as we kind of talk through it, a lot of information out there,
Yeah.
free or paid for.
Yep.
Understand what you should actually be getting by committing your time first. What is more valuable than your money? It's your time. Okay. So I'm throwing that out there.
Yep.
Just because it's free doesn't mean it's actually free. Because I guarantee you, no matter what, you have to invest time to get to the other side. Just because you give your email address and your name and your phone number doesn't mean you now have the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But I also guarantee you now you're going to have somebody saying, hey, buy my next thing, which fantastic. We do the same exact thing. We're going to give you this free thing. So you give us your information so I can then try to sell you the next thing in line. And hopefully you found a lot of value in the free thing. So you say, yeah, it makes sense to buy the next thing.
Yeah.
For us, the next thing we're selling you is $60. It's like really dumb. Like, yeah, you should spend $15 a week to help ensure you're a better coach and run a better business. Makes sense. Super.
From people that actually coach. Like that's the whole thing too.
So, but just pay attention to that stuff. There is an investment always. The stuff that you pay for should have some form of support behind it. If you historically have bought stuff, finished it, been able to apply it on the other side and monetize it, and you know it like the back of your hand, then you should go find the free stuff to do it. But if you don't check all those boxes off and it's not in a time frame that's appropriate for you, you should probably go find something that's going to support you in getting to the end and whatever the outcome that you're looking for is. So
yeah. Well, and last thing from my end is that if you're kind of skeptical on something, honestly, I would probably invest in a mentor, because they'll cut through a lot of noise and they'll give you the most contextualized information versus a system that was created for, dozens and hundreds and thousands of people, which is what a certification is like, this is what we know to be true in general. Whereas in like, hiring Steve as a business mentor, or hiring me as a coaching mentor, like those are things that will give you exactly what you need based upon what you tell us you're looking for and based upon the unique situation that you find yourself in. So that is another option. You got books, you got courses, certifications, you got mentors. Just make sure that, again, like you do your due diligence prior to purchasing anything. If you're worried about resources and you're a little tight on that, go talk to some people that have worked with those individuals or those courses and organizations and that'll really help you make sure that you protect your investments.
Well, we appreciate you guys spending time with us today. If you are not yet subscribed, go push that button, like the video, throw some comments down if you want to learn about something else. But thanks for listening to Beyond the Pump, where we break down the business of fitness and nutrition. We'll see you next time.